Hello and welcome to another episode of Dude, Is This Thing On? I'm Tyler Daswick, and joining me as always, our producer, Emilio Cariotti.
What's up, everybody? I'll cut that. What's up, everybody?
Emilio, we have a good show for the people today. It is going to be one long episode all about, this is probably, for the two of us, our most anticipated episode of the year.
Of the year.
The history of the podcast, really.
Really, I think this podcast owes a lot to the original Red Dead Redemption. So
yes, we are going to be diving in. This is going to be the first of a few episodes looking at Red Dead Redemption 2 that came out last week. You and I both got it opening night and have played somewhere in the range of like the lower end of like about 10 hours for me. What did you say, 20, 30 hours?
I'd say about 30 hours. I'm about 30 hours. I'd say I'm about halfway in because I have like two more areas that I have to like discover. So I'd say about halfway.
Okay. This game is huge. The story alone takes 50 to 60 hours to complete, and then it has one of the I don't even know like where to start, but it has a massive open world that was advertised heavily, and we will spend a lot of time in it. But for the sake of kind of this series of episodes, man, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to isolate different aspects of the game as much as we can to kind of maintain some focus and sort of deepen our level of criticism a little bit, because this is being treated and talked about as one of the landmark games of our generation.
Yeah, it really is. It's a new benchmark for video games as like a whole. It's what people are saying.
Yeah, the expectation when this game came out is that it would push the I almost said genre forward, but not genre, really the medium forward in technical ways and storytelling ways, and so we're gonna give that the attention it kind of commands.
It's really being treated like the jump from, say, like black and white silent film to like color talkies, kind of in that same regard.
That's a good parallel. So for the context, I guess, before we get into the game's opening chapter, which we're going to focus on today, can you kind of like contextualize that a little bit? Like, why was this being talked about before we knew anything about it and before we played it? Why was this being talked about as something that would push games with that kind of leap forward?
What, just the game as a whole?
Yeah, like why was the game going to be the thing that pushed everything ahead?
I think honestly, like the storm was, it was like the perfect storm. You know, everything was kind of right for this game to come out. They had really developed all the technology for the current generation of consoles that's being pushed. The way that consoles kind of work now, both the Xbox and the PlayStation, not so much with the Nintendo because that's kind of its own thing, but they're really kind of catching up to PC gaming. And I'm sure any PC gamer that hears that will scoff, but that's really, I'm not saying they're equals, but they're definitely trying to bridge that gap between consoles and PC. And so the hardware that this game is able to run on is right now the peak performance for the majority of people who play video games. That's number one. Number two is it's a Rockstar game. Their stories, their narrative has always been incredibly strong. You can go back and play the original Red Dead Revolver circa like 2004 or something like that, and despite all the other things that don't hold up for the game, obviously, because it's like an Xbox, like an original Xbox game, the narrative of that game is really good. And the narrative of any Rockstar game, going back to like the original GTAs, has always been incredibly strong. So it's got that going for it. The attention to detail has always been very strong with Rockstar games. So it's got that going for it. It's got the pedigree of Red Dead Redemption, which is considered one of the best narratives and just best. Yes. One of the best games ever made. And on top of all of that, it's promised to have a very, very fleshed out kind of role-playing elements in a very, very detailed, extremely large map. Some say, and I think the official number is it's not as big as GTA 5's map, which is, a lot of people are disappointed. But if you go back and play GTA 5, you have cars and planes and helicopters and shit, so it kind of needs to be big, or else you could zip across the whole thing in 2 seconds. And B, it is incredibly empty, and there's not too much to do outside of the city of Los Santos. And this has a map that is a little bit smaller, but is about 10 times more dense. So honestly, it panned out well in my mind. So I think all of those elements working together really got people whipped up in excitement for this game. And just like at face value, they seem to have pulled it off pretty well.
Yeah. So the big promise, I think, really, and it kind of speaks right into like where we are trend wise with video games. The big promise of Red Dead, the leading promise beyond we're going to tell a great story, we're going to broaden the narrative of one of our landmark games in the original Red Dead, is this open world. Everyone else claims to have this immersive, choice-driven, interactive, engaging open world, and none of them deliver, but we will. And we are going to have this dynamic thing that reacts to you, but also ignores you, but also moves and changes without you, and is this like lived in place where everything you do changes everything around you, but also everything around you changes without you. And so this level of dynamism and involvement and really like immersion for the player of, wow, this place feels real, everyone I encounter feels real, was the big promise. And in the wake of that promise, Rockstar drops us at the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2 in Chapter 1, which I think is going to become weirdly famous.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to explain that a little bit?
Well, let's kind of set the scene of the chapter itself. So Chapter 1 of Red Dead Redemption 2 is pure story. For all this open world, the game drops you right first into the story. You play this outlaw, Arthur Morgan is the name, right?
Yes.
Yep. Arthur Morgan, who runs in the Sons of Dutch outlaw gang. These are all of the guys who, in the original Red Dead Redemption, you went out and killed as John Marston.
Yes, true.
Which
there are some recognizable faces.
Right. So you have Bill Williamson present. You have Uncle. You have
Javier
Escuela. That's right. Dutch, obviously.
Abigail and Jack.
Abigail and Jack are around. You have all of these people who you encounter in a whole different context in the original Red Dead, and you are sort of in the heyday of the gang. You can't really call it the glory days because the gang's placed in this context where...
Right. This is sort of the end of the Renaissance for these people. And so this is where the seams are going to start coming undone, this whole philosophy that Dutch has about, this Robin Hood philosophy of steal only if you need to and let's find Nirvana together.
Right. So the game has you as a member of this gang, and you start in this snowy cabin trapped on the run from the law, and you and Dutch go for a ride in the woods, and that's pretty much the mission. You can't really trail off anywhere. You can't veer away. Combat is infrequent, though there's a final set piece that's pretty cool. Did I miss anything in kind of the scene setting?
No, you did. It's very tight. They did a good job of placing you in a big enough map where you can look around and be like, wow, this world is huge, but not big enough where you can get lost. And that's based on sort of the environment that you're in. It's very snowy, cold, isolate, desolate. There's wolves sort of around, so it kind of dissuades you from really going out on your own, especially since you have very limited weaponry at the beginning. They throw you a pistol, and then eventually you get a really shitty rifle that is not very good at anything, really. And that's it. And so you're kind of not forced to go along, just try and complete the missions as in order as possible, just so you can progress to the larger map. But it's very much in your interest to sort of play along, see the narrative for what it is, learn about the game, and try and pick up as much information as possible. And they do that very well by kind of just containing you in this bottleneck, and then by the time you get out and eventually go to Chapter 2, whoosh, the whole world opens up to you. It's like opening this window. Right.
But for the Chapter 1 experience, from things I'm seeing online, it it is very much an outlier to the rest of the game because your access to the world is super limited. You're in this really oppressive environment that restricts your movement a lot, restricts your speed a lot. So you'll hear a lot of things like Red Dead Redemption 2 is a really slow start.
But the original one had a slow ass start too. I mean, can you remember gathering cows and horses for the first 2.5 hours of that game?
Yeah. But what, keeping it to that first chapter, what were your first impressions as you were playing through it?
I was actually very frustrated. I was incredibly frustrated with the game going in, and that sounds like a really bad thing. That sounds like I really didn't have fun. I really didn't have fun with the first few hours of the game, actually. But some of my favorite games I've ever played have been incredibly frustrating at the beginning. What comes to mind for me is Fallout 3. I hated Fallout 3 for probably the first 8 hours I played that game. I was like, wow, this was a waste of $60. But by hour 11, I was like, holy shit, this is the most fun I've ever had in a video game.
Wow.
And that's sort of the same like lineage that Red Dead Redemption 2 took for me, where I was like, okay, I'm very confused. I don't really know how to do anything because all the controls and stuff, the way that the game plays, completely different from the first one. And I had literally just stopped playing the first game like an hour before I booted up Red Dead Redemption 2 to play a couple hours before I left for Mexico. But I was expecting to go in and expect the gunplay to be the same, expect sort of like hunting and scavenging to be the same, all different, man. And for the better, honestly. Like in the end, it really ends up actually being a more immersive experience, especially the gunplay. You play the first Red Dead Redemption and it's just a point and shoot, which is fine for the Xbox 360. Like when it came out, that was super fun. But in this game, like they paid really intricate attention to the way that the guns work. And you start off with, the Cattleman revolver, which is like a single action revolver. Yeah. And you actually have to cock the hammer back every single time you pull a trigger. And I died my first firefight because I was like, why isn't this fucking thing like firing? You actually have to, every trigger pull, you have to pull the trigger again to cock the hammer back. And then you can pull the trigger. So it's a very slowed down, very like heavy, like meaty kind of gunplay, and it totally took me off like by surprise, and I again didn't enjoy myself because I was just lost, Yeah. And I don't know if you felt the same way. I don't know if anyone else really does.
Yeah, no, I certainly did. I felt like I wasn't really sure how to do anything because there are no shortcuts in it, and everything takes a lot of steps. Even there is a gunfight portion in the game where you and a couple other outlaws come over this rise on your horse, and you're like, all right, we're gonna go down and we're gonna investigate this homestead. And you don't just get off your horse and go. You have to get off your horse and then search the saddlebags and then take the guns you want. And then you go down. Like, there's always a couple extra steps.
That's a good point, actually. That is a good point.
Yeah, and it makes it feel a lot of times like this is a video game, just make it easy on me. And the game seemingly at almost every turn doesn't want to be video gamey. It wants you to go through all of that stuff. And this is why I think that the first level is, notice I didn't say like acclaimed, I just said famous, because I think that with coming out of the promise of we are going to give you the most immersive open world experience ever with some of the greatest attention to detail ever. Nope. Here you are in this little box at first because we have to teach you all of these things. We have to teach you the mechanics of how everything works.
Yeah, because it's all extremely complex.
It's complex. Everything has multiple steps. Everything has multiple layers. And, we'll probably talk about this more in future episodes. Once you get into the rhythms of everything, it becomes very rewarding in a way I haven't really experienced. But from the outset, where it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I was carrying my rifle when I got on my horse. Why don't I have it anymore? It's because I stowed it in my saddlebag and I didn't take it back out again.
Yeah.
So all that stuff was like tripping me up and felt frustrating at the beginning.
Yeah,
and I think that was the consensus too.
Here's the part that really makes it frustrating for me, and this goes on to something that I actually really didn't like about the game, because I have so much praise for this game, but you and I discussed a little bit before we started recording, like there are a few things that I think were major oversights or just like technical glitches, problems that really make the game more frustrating than it is. One of those is actually weapon selection and just the controls in general. I'm not a big fan of just because the game is so complicated. There's like 3 or 4 different like loadout wheels that you have at any given point, and being able to navigate those wheels is incredibly cumbersome. It's very, and I've died because of it. Like I've died trying to get my gun out because I'm like, no, I don't want that gun. I want this gun. And there's like 15 different rifles, and maybe you pull out a rifle and you sling it on your shoulder, you get off your horse, and now you have a completely different loadout for some reason that's unexplained. And so in the middle of a firefight, you have to run back to your horse and cycle through and get rid of your bow and arrow and your varmint rifle to get to your carbine and maybe your shotgun that you really needed and had already pre-planned and put onto your person before getting off the horse, but has somehow magically disappeared from your actual body as you're getting off. Like stuff like that started building up and only made it more frustrating. Once you get the rhythm of kind of how it works and expected, you have to kind of prepare for the worst for this game. For any encounter, you really do have to prepare for the worst, because you may get caught without your weapons and it may not be your fault. Sometimes it is like your fault, like, wow, I really misplanned this and now all I have is like a shotgun. I got into a firefight with like 6 bullets one time because I just had a bad loadout that didn't have any ammo, and that was actually one of the funnest firefights I got into. That was a knife and bow and arrow fight, and that ended up being like really, really entertaining.
That's cool.
But sometimes it'll just be like, nope, you don't have that anymore, or nope, you accidentally pulled the wrong weapon, or nope, like this, that, and the other thing happened, and now you're dead, or now the game has crashed, or now your horse fell off the cliff, or now your horse has unexpectedly run into a tree, sending you flying into the snow while you're being shot at by 20 people. And so that can become very, very tiresome, and something that I personally think should have been a little better thought out. Like, maybe there isn't a better way to lay out 3 different wheel menus on a person, but it's very, very cumbersome and very disorienting from time to time.
Yeah, there are a lot of processes to learn. Like you can't be sitting on your horse, set your loadout, and then get off, because that loadout, like when you're on your horse, the character automatically will like put everything in the saddlebags when he's not using it. And so then you have to realize, oh, I have to get off the horse and then decide everything. And so the game doesn't really tell you this. You have to learn everything through experience. And that just makes it really challenging. And you get into a lot of scenarios where you're like, wait, why do I only have my revolver? I thought I had my rifle back on the horse. And and there's a lot of stuff like that in the early going that's hard. I mean, I think my impression of this, of the first chapter, though, I think is going to age well once I get past all the frustration I had with the mechanics, because what occurs to me is this: like, the game, obviously, by the way we're talking about, plays so much differently than any game Rockstar has made before. Yeah. It plays differently than really like most other video games.
It's an amalgamation of every game that Rockstar has ever made kind of rolled into one. It's in my personal mind, it's all the best elements of like some of Rockstar's best games rolled into one. You have like the investigation aspects of LA Noire.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah. You have the investment where you can look and inspect, and you can flip things over for further clues, and you have to piece things together, and the tracking and the footprints and stuff like that. It's got the gunplay of like Max Payne 3, which is thankfully the best gunplay that Rockstar has ever done. It's got like the crafting of something like Bully almost. I don't know if
Oh,
you've ever
hell
played
yeah.
Bully.
Yeah,
but yeah,
man.
you know, making slingshots and like mixing up different stink bombs and stuff like that. And it's got like the story of Red Dead Redemption. And so it has all these different elements that they took over the years wisely, and they're like, all right, this worked here, this didn't work here, and this one worked here. So we're going to take that and roll it up into the best game. So far, the best game they've done. I don't know about the story. We're not going to talk about the story because neither one of us have finished it. But as far as the actual elements and functionality of the game, the gameplay mechanics, best work they've done by far.
Okay, I'm glad you think so, because my impression is the more I think about Red Dead Redemption, if you put aside the story and just look at the structure of the game in terms of like how the missions are laid out, how you choose missions, how you travel, how you interact with all the characters, it is very Grand Theft Auto adjacent, and just in terms of just how the game plays.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is not. And I think especially after the huge success of GTA 5, the developers, I think smartly, said, we have to set a tone that this is not going to be anything like Grand Theft Auto, that this is going to play really differently, that this is going to be laborious makes it sound negative, but this is going like there's just going to be stuff that's a lot more deliberate, and it's not going to be fast. Like your character doesn't really move that fast through the world.
Yeah, your horse is kind of slow, to be completely honest. Even I have a really good horse, and it's still very slow.
Yeah, like I think that the first chapter is on a subliminal level trying to teach you that, and is like, this is going to be a game that takes a lot of patience, that takes a lot of strategy, where you are going to have to plan things. You're going to have to anticipate how much food you're going to need. Like, should you sell that herb or whatever that you find? Should you feed it to your horse? Like, you're going to have to start managing all of these resources and systems. And that means this isn't going to be the kind of thing where you're just going to boot up the next mission, fire as many bullets as you can, and, just go whiz bang through the whole game. Like, they want you to play this differently. And I think that's because they made this huge fucking world, and they're preparing you to get into that in a way that's like, we want you to take your time. We want you to look at stuff. We want you to pass by something and stop and be like, actually, you know what? I'm going to check out that ruined house because there's going to be something really fucking cool in there. And we want you to see it. And if you approach this like Grand Theft Auto, where just get to the next thing, see how
run
fast
as many
I can
stoplights you can get. Doesn't matter if you hit a civilian. Like, it's just get there. Jump out of an airplane and just parachute down into the next checkpoint. Like, get there. That, yeah, you're right. That's taken out of the equation. They do it organically. Like, you get caught up in shit where it's like, all right, I need to go kill a Florida panther, skin it, and bring it back to the thing. Oh, but what's this over here? Like, let me just go check this out real fast, and I'll get back to that Florida panther. I fucking know it. And then you get caught up in this thing, and then you get into like a shootout, and you're wounded, so you're like, shit, okay, let me go into town real quick. I'll buy some more ammo, I'll buy some more medicine, and then I'll get right to that Florida panther. I haven't forgot about that Florida panther. And you just keep going down the rabbit hole in a really organic way. And then by the time you're done, it's 2:00 in the morning, and you've done a billion things except get that fucking Florida panther. And you're like, God damn it, where did the time go?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel. One of the early missions introduces you to poker and how poker works, and like, I'll be honest, I sat at that poker table for like 45 minutes.
Oh, you're one of those bastards. I have this big gripe about card games in video games. I don't want to play another game within a game. So anytime there's a poker thing, I actually remember that mission because you can, this goes to the choice element of the game. Like, I remember that mission because the people will ask you after you're done with your primary task, the people at the card table will be like, oh, so do you want to take that feller's place? And you can accept or decline and go on with your life. And you accepted. I definitely declined because I was like, oh, good, I don't want to play poker. And I left. But that kind of goes to the choice element where you can, it really does give you a lot of opportunities to make different choices. Some of them are small like that, like sitting down to play a card game. I don't know if something exciting happened during that card game, but I chose not to find out. I know, right? But I'm sure I've made some choices that totally panned out to be something really cool that maybe you declined, and you're not going to know until your next playthrough. And there have been some things that have happened that, again, have gone to technical glitches that have really pissed me off because it was something very cool that I wanted to see happen, and then a technical glitch happened and kept me from like going down that storyline. So it's a really cool element when it works, but 90% of the time it works. I'll say that.
Okay, but are you encountering like a lot of bugs and glitches?
I am, honestly. That's one of my biggest gripe. The game is crashing on me like a fair amount, and usually there's never a convenient time for your game to crash, but there's in the middle of a really long, laborious mission that's very tedious, or there's just riding your horse through the countryside. And the past 3 times, it's been during a very long, laborious, tedious mission where it's crashed, and then guess what, Amelia? You have to restart that whole mission from the beginning. Or my personal favorite was, and 2 of them have happened later in the game, so I won't discuss them. But the one that has so far pissed me off the most, because it was just so devastating of a loss, happened in the first chapter. And it's when you have to go hunting for that big-ass bear with Hosea.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
And I did that one immediately as soon as I could, because hunting is so tedious that I didn't know how to hunt, really. I couldn't figure it out, and I sucked at it, and I was getting, all my kills were being destroyed, and I wasn't getting enough money for the skins because they're all poor quality. So I was like, okay, let's do another hunting mission so I can finally get this down. The hunting mission is, very quickly, it's not a spoiler or anything. No. You go with a member of the camp to track down this really big-ass grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear gets a better hand of you and attacks you and kind of scares off your friend a little bit, and you have the option to continue tracking the bear on your own or just go to camp with your friend. I chose, no shit, to go and hunt the bear. Why would I skip that?
Hell yeah, me too.
Turns out it's a legendary bear, correct?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. And did you kill the legendary bear?
Yes, I did.
Good. No, that's fine. And what did you get from the legendary bear? You got a legendary pelt and a bunch of cool legendary shit, right?
Yes.
I didn't get any of that, because as soon as I killed the legendary bear and skinned it and got all the legendary shit and put it on my horse and was riding back to camp to get a huge sum of money or whatever, the game crashed. And by the time I had reloaded it, it gives me a little thing saying the legendary bear carcass is gone and all of that stuff is now gone.
What?
Yeah, so I never got to do anything with the legendary bear.
Oh,
never got to bring its corpse back to town. I lost all of the cool shit that came with it. And so that was within like 3 hours of playing the game. That happened, and I was like,
"Oh, that's so
that
annoying,
fucking
dude.
Sucks." Okay, I guess I'll see you next playthrough.
Damn.
Yeah, that's happened twice more since that in other scenarios that were equally as frustrating. So I have had some technical issues. The game is not without its faults. It's a very beautiful game. There are some parts of it that look prettier than others. I will say, if you pay attention to some things, you will see some smoke and mirrors, which is fine. A game this big, like, I don't expect it to be 100% all the time. Like, the game would crash way more than it does. I will say character animation, in my experience so far, has been a little hit or miss. Sometimes they look beautiful. Other times it looks like lumpy clay. And so it sort of is hit or miss.
I'm surprised. Maybe it's because I'm still playing on my shitty projector. To the point, honestly, dude, where the button prompts, I can't distinguish them from one another. So half the time when it's like tap whatever to like break free, I have no idea what button it is.
So you're just scrambling, pressing all 4 buttons.
Yeah, seeing like which one fills the meter.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I've been impressed with all that, but that this was actually one of my first impressions too. I think what kept me going through the first chapter, through all of the things where I was like, wow, this is struggling and this feels really hard and not in a fun way, and I hope the whole game doesn't feel like this.
Yeah.
Is all the characters and especially the performances, dude, I'm in. Like I
will say the performances are excellent. There isn't even like a beggar on the street will give like an Oscar-worthy performance, honestly. Like, it's very impressive.
Yeah, I was especially like I had allegiances right away of like people I liked and didn't like in the game. I actually that legendary bear mission was actually what sold me on the game, because I was like, man, like I don't know how to do. I went and like tried to run around the world and was like, man, I don't know how to do anything.
Yeah, got your ass kicked pretty fast.
Right. And this is the beginning of chapter 2, and I don't know how to do anything, but I like that Hosea guy. I'm supposed to be able to talk to anybody. Like, why don't I just go talk to him? I kind of want to just know more about him. And went up and talked to him. There was like no marker on my map or anything, like no special indicator. And he was like, oh, like I was going to go on this hunting trip. You want to come with me? I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like,
yeah, and it's like a 3-day hunting trip. Like, you make a campfire with him, and like you sing with him. It's really nice. It's like a really good bonding experience. And I will say there are quite a few more of those with members of the camp. It behooves you to talk to everybody in that game, because you have no idea what's going to happen or how they're going to react. Some of my favorite moments have happened like just completely on accident in that game. One of them actually just happened like this morning, where I was like, wow, that might have been the coolest thing I've experienced thus far, completely on accident.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, and so I think it's notable that sort of in that situation where I didn't know how to do anything, like I had a mission that like instructed me in a lot of things. That mission like tells you how to hunt and how to like make a camp and everything. And I was basics. Like, oh, thank God, like I really need to know how to do this shit.
Yeah.
But it endeared me to that character a lot, and so I know who I really like in the gang, who I'm like not too fond of. I kind of have my own allegiances, but I want to shout out from the beginning, dude. Whoever is voicing Dutch, that's one of the best vocal performances I've heard in a video game.
I'm pretty sure it's the same guy from the first one too. I'm pretty sure they kept all of the same voice actors. Like, obviously John Marston's the same, but I think Dutch is the same character. So it's just really impressive to see him get more time to really like express his character.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that I loved about the first chapter, and we're not going to get beyond this in terms of the story, is I think that opening environment, placing you in the middle of that blizzard, I've used these words already, but kind of that oppressive, confined situation, this isn't going to be the game where you're the outlaw roaming around the West, doing whatever you want, living the glory days. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really a survival game. It's a game about survival.
It is. They make that very clear from the beginning that they are surviving. That's exactly what they're doing. Every kill is one step closer to freedom for these people.
Yeah, and the game functions that way even when you're apart from the story and apart from the game. Like, you have to take steps to survive. And all the mechanics are so rich and detailed, they really enforce that. And I think that's part of kind of the announcement of that first chapter. You know, there's that really awesome, I thought it was really clever story moment where in the first chapter there's this train robbery, hook the dynamite up, and you're like, all right, we're just going to get this classic train robbery. Mm-hmm. Dynamite doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And then you're suddenly on this improvised mission where you're doing this unglamorous backup plan where you're just like, you know, you're on top of the train and it's fun and cinematic and cool, but it ends in kind of this like haphazard, grisly, grimy scene where they're just filling the side of a train full of bullets.
Yeah, just to like get the people out. Yeah, that's actually a good point. You know, I didn't really think about that. I just knew. I mean, I had like I said at the beginning of this podcast, you have to constantly plan for the worst in this game, like, because it'll always go tits up. Like, there was one scene by the end. Chapter 3 is, and I don't want to talk about too much because we're really focusing on chapter 1, but by chapter 3, you are very comfortable in everything that you're doing, and you still feel like that fight for survival, where every single encounter could be an incredibly deadly one, and so you have to really think a few steps ahead. And there's a shootout in town that is very much like that, where it's just boom, ambush, and now you're in a fight kind of for your life, and it goes tits up immediately. Like it's that train robbery, but like cranked up to like 10, you know, during that mission. And so that's a very interesting point that you make, because I'm thinking back of all the different things that have gone very badly. And by the end of chapter 3, the last mission of chapter 3 so far has been my favorite mission in the game. It's incredibly cinematic. It is incredibly dark and kind of grisly. Like, it's a very sad moment for the game, but it is exactly like you planned, where things didn't go as planned and everything kind of fell apart in a really bad sense, but it hits you so hard that, you know, it kind of is worth it in the end. And so yeah, I'm rambling, but I'm glad that you pointed that out, because it really made me kind of reflect on that moment more.
Yeah, and I think too, when I think about that kind of thing, because the game starts out on like a sad note, like you're on the run, you don't have any food,
people have died, you have corpses like that are in tow, you know.
Yeah, and you know, members of your gang are missing, and it's my sense too. Like I have a couple thoughts. I think one, I can tell already, like, this is the game Rockstar wanted to make all along. Mm-hmm. You know, like, this is, like you said, like kind of a mechanical pastiche of all these other games. It's
a good word, good SAT word.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much. Writer here.
Professional.
Yeah. Don't try this at home. Not for amateurs, but it's also just like the world is just like a programmer's wet dream. It's just amazing that they like made all of these systems.
A little less elegant with that one, but
right. but it really is like there's so much like technical achievement in it. And I think that's like the real accomplishment of the game, like story withstanding. But I think because of that, for better and worse, they are so careful about, we want you to play this a certain way because we've built it a certain way and we're really proud of it. We don't want you to just kind of go fuck around. Like
and I've always been one of the type of people that like hates. When I see someone play GTA and they plug in the game and mission 1 and they grab a gun and they grab a car and they just go start shooting people, like running people over and just going, like, I hate that. It really kind of like makes me just kind of mad to see someone like that. I'm like, dude, you're missing everything that this world has to offer just to go like blow up a car. Like, come on, man. And so far I'm trying my hardest not to have like bounties or anything like that, you know, just to play the game like the story is unfolding around me.
Yeah, and live in the world and let the world unfold around you. I think, you know, I don't want to like paint a narrative on Rockstar, but we've kind of seen them commentate more and more and more, especially in Grand Theft Auto, on the like stereotypical Grand Theft Auto player. And that comes off kind of like harsh in 5 with the Trevor character, right?
Yeah, Trevor, who is just the chaos. He is that person who plays the game built into like a character. Yeah.
And Red Dead, I think you still have a chance for that. You still have opportunity for that, but it is so much harder, and the game punishes you in a lot harsher fashion than Grand Theft Auto. And so that's kind of the thing I'm sort of looking for as I keep going forward is I think Rockstar is, as they were making it, felt pretty protective over this because it is, you know, just technically amazing. However the gameplay shakes out.
Yeah.
But there was a clear sense of like, we don't want you to like, not even like, don't play this game like Grand Theft Auto. Like, we don't want you to play this game like Grand Theft Auto. So how's your dog doing?
He's doing great. 1 second. I don't want to talk while he's barking because I will never be able to get that out of editing. One second.
I get you.
Buddy, what's up? He just woke up from a nap, startled. 1 second. What's up? What are you doing? All right, I'm back. Honestly, that's the least of my problems because I just noticed that there's the audio like wire that attaches the microphone to the computer is bent. I somehow just bent it. So it keeps like switching between left dominant and right dominant like on the sound. So that's going to be a huge pain in the ass to edit out, but
damn.
So it's fine. Him barking will be the least of my worries for this one.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, all that was to say, I think that's going to be interesting to track going forward, is how resistant or agreeable people are to that, because I think it's already kind of polarizing players in the sense of like, oh, I thought I was going to be able to be that chaos agent in this game, and I would have a better world than ever to play around in. And it's like, you know, the world is better than ever, but it is designed toward a particular kind of play style, and frankly, like a particular atmosphere and mood. Like, you are a struggling outlaw past your prime, and everything kind of matches that tone, which I really appreciate. But I think this is more of a programmer's game than like a gamer's game, I guess.
I'm really grateful for that, because like I can tell, like you and I, we have that same sort of mindset where we're the opposite of the chaos agent. I can totally see people who in GTA 5 just did all the crazy jumps and stuff and just tried to do as crazy stuff as possible for whatever reason, just really not liking this game. And that sucks. Like, it sucks not having a game live up to your expectations, but if it was between their happiness or mine, I'm glad it was mine. Like, I'll say that. Sorry. But I'm glad that the game caters more towards the slow, methodical, thoughtful player than the one just on Adderall who's like blowing off steam because he hates his job or whatever and just wants to like go shoot a bunch of AIs in the head. I mean, like you said, there's still some ability to do that, especially once you start getting to chapter 4. I don't want to talk about too much, but that's where you find your first big city, and it's already been revealed in pre-production stuff.
Okay.
It's called Saint Denis. It's essentially like New Orleans. And that's like a fully fleshed out, it is a full city. It feels like if the game just took place in Saint Denis, it would be a fulfilling game 6 or 7 years ago, you know? And you can definitely do a lot of chaos in there, and I've accidentally done some chaos in there, and it is incredibly fun. Like I talked about it earlier, but one of the best moments of the game that I've seen thus far, I played it earlier this morning, was actually in Saint Denis, and it happened completely on accident. But it was so completely different from anything else that it caught me off guard pleasantly. And so I think there is a place for the chaos agent in this game, and it is sort of in those tight confines of that like industrialized industrial revolution city, while the more slow, methodical player is really going to enjoy either the swamps, or I've yet to be there, but the western part and the Mexican, like the Sonoran Desert sort of part of the game. Which I'm very much looking forward to finally moving there, because I want to see if they got it like right, you know, as right as they did for the original Red Dead. The last thing it's kind of random, but I wanted to ask you about, and knowing you've played more of the story than I have, but as someone who's kind of like halfway through chapter 2, and I really felt this in chapter 1, your character Arthur Morgan, I can't really figure out if his design is so you can be him, or if he is like actually like his own character, like John Marston was kind of his own character. I think as you definitely by the end of chapter 3, I felt that definitely up until the very end of chapter 3, where I was like, I really don't have a handle. And I don't want to talk about story too much again, because we don't know how it pans out, so I won't comment on it. But I really didn't have a handle on the story or really where it was going. I was still waiting for the other shoe to drop in terms of story, because much like Halo Reach to Combat Evolved, this is the Halo Reach to Red Dead Redemption. In that we kind of know how this story ends, and it's not going to end well, because you know what happens to Javier Escuela, you know what happens to Bill Williamson, you know what happens to Dutch, like, eventually.
Yeah.
What you don't know is what happens to Arthur, but based on everything else that's sort of happened in the game, you can make a few assumptions. Right. And so, for up until the end of Chapter 3, everything is kind of light. And not very heavy or dark. There are some elements to it, but not as dark as we know GTA, Red Dead Redemption can get. And so by the end of Chapter 3, that other shoe finally drops, and you see really what this gang is about. You see really the type of characters that Dutch are and Arthur Morgan are and stuff like that. And that's only halfway through the game. That's literally, the end of Chapter 3 is like the halfway point. And so that's your first kind of step into the rabbit hole, and it's only getting more devious and darker as the story goes on. And so I will say I completely feel where you're going, yet just have to hang on and trust that these guys know what they're doing.
Okay. And that's funny. I'm glad that it's weird talking about it because it's forward in time but back one game.
Yeah.
I think that something tells me already, well, really, not even something tells me, like, already, I feel like this game is making Red Dead Redemption better. Like,
no, it is. Like, it's actually sad.
Yeah.
It's making that game really sad for me, because there have been moments where I've been hanging around camp, because there are a few moments where if something really big and jovial happens, the camp will be like, all right, guys, we're not going to do chores today. Let's just party for tonight.
Yeah.
And everyone will be super excited. Javier Escuela will grab his guitar and he'll start singing in Spanish. And the voice actor actually has like a beautiful voice, like a beautiful voice, that voice actor. And I could tell it's him singing. And so I'll sit down and I'll just listen to Javier Escuela sing. And then it'll hit me like, wow, I'm going to kill this guy, and like my character will kill this guy in 10 years. You know, this guy's going to eventually find himself on the end of a gun or on the end of a rope down in Mexico. And so it's really sad to hear him like sing, and everyone's singing with him and stuff like that. And he's got a big smile on his face, and you're best friends with him for right now. And he's best friends with John Marston. But you know that in the next game, like, he's dead.
Yeah.
And it's not good. And same thing with Bill Williamson. He's a very harsh character, but hearing him talk about like his days in the army, or maybe his brother who doesn't want to talk to him anymore, or, you know, why he's so angry, and you kind of feel for the guy, and you're like, wow, I'm going to kill you. Like, you're dead. Eventually you'll die. And same thing with Dutch. Eventually Dutch kills himself.
Yeah.
And here's this really happy guy, full of life, super charming, loves the people that he's around, and you know it doesn't end well. Like I said, it's that Halo Reach effect where it's like, wow, by the end of Halo Reach, I'm probably going to die. All of my teammates are probably going to die. This planet's doomed. And so, you know, like, this gang is doomed. Like, this is a sinking ship. And the irony is what is that called? Theatrical irony? Literary irony? The irony where the audience knows something that the characters within the story don't.
Yeah.
And so it's that sort of irony where you look around and everyone's got this big grin on their face, but you're the only one who knows that it's all going to burn.
Yeah. And
it's very sad.
And it's coming from John, which is crazy.
Yeah, like the very unassuming one that nobody really pays that much attention to.
Right.
And he has his moments in the gang where he steps up and, like, you know, really helps out. But everyone's like, John's John.
Yeah.
John is John, you know? And maybe he'll be a father and maybe he won't. But in 10 years, he's going to kill all of us.
Yeah.
And that's sad. It's just really sad.
Yeah. It paints. I went back and watched the cutscene where Dutch kills himself in the original again, and it's really tragic. And he turns to John and his back's to the cliff, and says something to the effect of like, "This isn't our world anymore." And he just falls. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, and you can already see it. Like, they're talking about it now. Like, this is it. Like, we have to get out now, or we're not going to survive in this world.
Yeah.
And they don't. You know that they don't get out, and it's really sad.
Yeah.
It's really depressing.
One of the opening title cards says it's 1899 and the age of outlaws has passed into myth. And like, they're already they're already post glory, and we meet them huddled in this little cabin trying to run from the law, and Dutch is begging everyone to stay with him.
Yeah, like you can tell like they're about to break, and if he doesn't fix things right now, like there's not going to be anybody left, and he's going to lose his family. It's a gang, but like, you know, you do really get this sense of family, like especially if you put the effort in, if you put money into the collection bin, if you really start like building up the camp. My camp is like super built up now. I put a lot of money into making these guys happy. And, you know, they'll greet you and you have coffee with them. And like I said, you hang out with Javier Escuela, who's actually like one of my favorite characters. You hang out with Lenny, who's like a really cool dude. You know, I don't want to spoil too much, but one character I really liked has already passed away, and it hit hard. You know, it was very unexpected, that character's death. And it just sucks. You know, it sucks. It's that thing where, all right, the first one has already died, and that sucked. So it's definitely going to suck when the rest of these guys presumably meet their end. And I know that it's coming because I've already hit the halfway mark. So it's just creeping up on me now. I kind of got this pit in my stomach.
Yeah. I think that, you know, I don't know. I know that we play games similar to each other and different from a lot of the communities we see online and stuff, but it's kind of been that emotional core that kept me through all of the stuff that was giving me trouble early on. It was like, but there's just something about these people, like I like them, you know, and it was especially rewarding then when like my affection for Hosea led to a spontaneous hunting mission where I was like, oh wow, like this guy's like teaching me about the game. Like I really wanted to know all this stuff, and how cool is it that it like comes from this like character I really liked. Like I was rewarded for seeking that out, and that's why it sold me on the game. I was like, oh wow, this my hope for like deeper characters and like experience more of the writing and the story and all of those complexities actually helped me in the gameplay and the mechanics, and I was like, damn, okay.
It made you a better player.
Yeah, and
yeah, that's cool. That's very well thought out.
Yeah, it was really neat. So I mean, I'm still definitely at the stage I'm still getting my feet under me and figuring everything out, but I'm excited to keep going. I'll press into the story more for sure, I think.
For sure, definitely. Like I'm at the point where I am comfortable with all the mechanics of the game. You know, I have a good horse. I've got my guns that I like. I maintain my guns. The attention to detail to those guns is really good. Like I said before, like just finding them, and you have to clean them, and you can improve them and stuff like that. And so I have the ones that I like. I have the horse that I like. I have enough clothes that I can like change my clothes to fit whatever scenario like I'm sort of in. And you know, I've got the hunting down tight. Like hunting is getting towards like more of the tedious, not necessarily tedious, but I'm really focusing on the challenges. And another complaint that I just want to get out of the way is more menus, man. There are so many menus. Everything is hidden behind like 5 or 6 menus. So I had to go digging to eventually find the challenges, and there's 90 of them, and some of them are ridiculous, man. I'm like struggling on a couple of them, and I don't know what they do. It doesn't really hold your hand and explain like, hey, if you do all of these, you're gonna get this gun and and a blowjob from a prostitute. It's like you don't know what's at the end of this rainbow, but that kind of compels you to see like, okay, what happens if I sit here for 15 hours and do all 90 of these challenges? Do I get something cool out of it? And so, yeah, I can't wait to go down that rabbit hole. I think definitely by the next week, we should both be hopefully done with the story. And so we'll be able to actually talk about the story arc in its totality.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it will really depend on how far I get. Because I have no doubt you'll be able to get there. But
I think you'll probably be good. If you can get, like... Nah, actually, that's a lot.
Yeah, doing the math.
That's a lot. That's a lot of hours. Hopefully, you'll be done. We might just do like we might just do like a couple days late or something like that, just to make sure that you get squared away.
Or we pivot to really getting into the mechanics of the open world, especially, and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. At that point, we should definitely have seen the entire world. I think we will at least both be like in the last portions of the map. So
yeah,
here's hoping.
Yeah. So there's a lot more to come. This is just part one of our, I guess, extended Red Dead Redemption 2.
It'll probably be like a three-parter. This is probably going to be.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
And it's that rich, it's that deep, and it's complicated. I feel like my relationship with the game is already complicated, but my frustrations are being met by the things I love most about it. But I'm optimistic that, I mean, it already feels worth the money in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was definitely worth. I normally don't do this, but for such a good game, I ponied up an extra $20 and bought.
Oh yeah?
Not the best edition, whatever the second, like the limited edition, but not the collectible edition or whatever, right? And so definitely at an $80 value, I can already say that it's worth $80 for sure. Like I've already gotten $80 worth of value in a current age of video games where video game companies nickel and fucking dime you for everything. Yeah. This game gives a lot away for $60 to $80 for sure.
Yep. All right, that's part one of our Red Dead 2 review and discussion. If y'all want to find more of my stuff, you can follow me on Twitter at Tyler Daswick, or read my culture writing at relevantmagazine.com. Gonna see if I can write about this game ever.
Dude, I hope so. I don't know why Relevant wouldn't want to get in on this.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest culture items of the year, no doubt. So I'll angle for that, and we'll give a heads up on the pod when that happens,
when that drops.
Amelia, where can people find you and episodes of the show?
I mean, you can find us at YouTube, Dude Is This Thing On. You can also find our Facebook page at Ditto, that's all caps, or Dude Is This Thing On. And we're still working on iTunes. We're almost there. We're just waiting for a couple more things to come through.
Money.
It really shouldn't be this complicated.
We're waiting for money. That's what that.
Okay, well, I didn't want to say that. We are poor, damn it. I'm eating cat food. It's unseemly. Yeah, no, we're waiting for money, but it'll come through soon, and all 5 of you, hi Dad, will be able to listen to us on iTunes. So look for us there in the near future.
Awesome. That'll do it for this episode of Dude Is This Thing On. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone.
Have a good one, guys.